Is here recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ladies Power Launch. I'm so happy that you joined us here. The person that I'm sharing with you today is somebody who's really very close to my heart. And I know you're probably saying, Davia, you say that about everybody, but you guys don't even understand. When you meet some people, it feels like your soul has connected. And I felt that way the very first time that I met Veronica. And so it is with great pleasure that I am introducing her to you. Veronica, welcome. Thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction to be. The feeling is mutual.
Awesome. So, may I ask you, Veronica, to just share with everybody? I know you, I love you, I absolutely adore what you're doing in the world, but could you share with everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Veronica Wirth, and my company is called Evolvative. And I have been for a number of years in the branding space and design space. The chapter I just wrote is actually about evolving over this last year during the pandemic, evolving not out of that, but the next chapter of how that will look. And it involves bringing more of my spiritual gifts into my work. So, and now I'm entering a whole nother cycle of that too. So it's a combination of those two worlds and blending them to help people really bring their brilliance forward in a soulful way.
I love that you're talking, Veronica, about evolving because, one of the things that I knew going into 2020 is that we were going to be asked to transform. We were going to be asked to change. There was no way that I could have known all that we would have to have dealt with. But I knew that there was some change on the horizon. And so I think it's a perfect time for us to be having this conversation about what it means to be a success in any season. And I feel like you're the perfect person to have this conversation with because you know about change. Am I right?
Yes, sometimes too well, I am afraid.
Well, I'm just wondering when we decided that we were going to have a summit entitled Success in Every Season, and we were going to have a book to accompany the summit talking about stories about being a success in any season. Why did that idea appeal to you? Why did you say yes to being part of our Success in Any Season book?
Well, it really spoke to me right away. I just resonated because of this past year, everything that I've been going through. And I thought that's exactly the path I've been on. And I know a lot of other people have been on that very similar path as well, trying to adjust to the changes in our world and our economy and our own environment and our own businesses. And then trying to find like, what is success going to look like now for me? How am I going to adjust? How am I going to transform? How am I going to grow? What do people need? What is different now that how do I need to serve people differently so that I can really help them with the changes that they've been going through? So it just seemed like the most timely subject and exactly where I was.
To do that. What was it like for you, Veronica, when we all had to? I'm going to use that, what has become now a four-letter word. That's not quite a four-letter word, but what was it like for you when you had to pivot, when you had to go from doing a lot of the things that you were doing in person to moving your business more online and sort of changing the way you're doing business? How was that?
Yeah, it would actually two different things come up. The first thing is it was scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people, I just watched my pipeline disappear almost overnight. And I just wasn't sure where to go with it. So there was definitely some time where I was in a lot of fear because I was completely in the unknown. And I couldn't quite yet see where I was going. And I think also as an empath and a sensitive, just processing along with everyone, like the energy of what was the upheaval on the planet, what was going on. But also once I started to kind of get my sea legs under me, um, actually an incredible peace and a calm came, because I started to really feel this change of pace, this slower pace that was not just in our country, but global. And something about that thrust me into a different space, a much more contemplative space. Um, and I could just feel that it was time to go deeper. And that's how it showed up for me. Um, and so I thought, well, I can't fight it. It's like trying to fight the tide, you know? You think, well, all right, let's go see what's to be found here.
That's so, I think, indicative of how the time was for so very many people. I've been talking to a lot of our members, talking to a lot of people who've hopped onto this show, and it's sort of the same sort of thing. Everybody has had an opportunity that perhaps they might not have had otherwise to go within and to really reassess the way that they're doing the business that they're doing. So, you told a story in our collaborative book, Success in Any Season. I thought it was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, I'm not asking you to give away the whole story because, I want to give people a reason to go out and get the book. And there are so many other great stories in the book with so many other writers that share what it really means to be success in any season. But would you share with us just a little bit of what your story is so that people can have their appetite kind of whetted and they'll feel like they want to run out, not walk, but run and go get our book, Success in Any Season?
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I won't spoil it, but it's essentially my journey of a kind of a chapter in my journey of really waking up to my spiritual calling as it pertains to my business and my work, which is an area that um, I hadn't before really brought it into at all. So it's my journey in sort of, I will say, my dance in learning the different emotions that I went through in that process, and um, and also just embracing the unknown, embracing constant evolution. Um, I think that was really a big lesson for me. I'm hesitating because I'm like, I don't want to tell too much, but just the idea, instead of, I feel like sort of this old way of thinking, which is looking at change like a traumatic event, and it happens as a beginning, a middle, and an end, and when it's over, then we can, okay, then we're doing this. I can fit it into my brain, and I understand what's going on, and I can move forward. And part of my awakening and realization over this time has been that no, at least for me, it's actually that we are constantly evolving, and that really woke up for me was like, okay, well, if that's true, just like nature and the universe is always evolving and always growing, it doesn't happen in cut and dry pieces. It's constantly going on, constantly becoming. So if that's true for me too, and for my business, then how do I view things differently? What does that make possible? And not, instead of bracing for it, how can I actually lean into it and embrace it and design for it, so that it becomes a positive process instead of something to be terrified of and avoid. So it's not saying I don't have fear, so still have fear and all those things, and that those things don't come up, but it's really was a big shift in mindset for me.
So a lot of people have had varying circumstances surrounding 2020 and all the things that happened during that time. If you were to give us some advice about what it really takes to be a success in any season, what would your advice be?
I think the number one thing is to really cultivate a deep trust in yourself and your own knowing. And at the same time, a trust in your connection to that deeper self, to source, however you name it. Um, because when everything else is in flux and the ground is moving underneath you, metaphorically, um, that is the one thing that that can that you can, if you can learn to lean on that and keep, and that remains constant, then you kind of become the eye of the storm. And those other outside influences, not that there aren't challenges, but they have a different placement in your life than if you can hold that center. Um, that would be my number one thing, I think.
I'm so happy that you're talking about that, holding on to your center and being the eye of the hurricane and all of this wonderful stuff. But Veronica, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. What what is how do we get there?
Mm,
How do we do that?
that's good. Yeah, that's not interesting. That's a good, like, you are challenging me because I can think I've gone through the process, but how would I tell someone else to do that? Um, I would say develop at least 1 to 3 practices that you know
Hmm.
will get you there. Make them as regular as you can. It's like building a muscle or clearing a path, right? You're sort of priming the pump so that when you turn it on, you know the water will flow right out. Um,
Hmm.
and so it's really those practices. It's cultivating that relationship with yourself and with your connection to source. And the more often you do it, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. Um, but that inner life, um, I just think that that's like, there's, if we don't spend time doing that, well, I'll phrase it differently, that's just the most important, the most valuable way we can spend our time. Um, and and when we do that, it can't not show up in the rest of our life and in our outer circumstances. It can't not show up in our business. It can't not show up in our relationships and in our outer world, um, that we exist and that we create. So yeah, I'm just thinking if there was anything else.
Well, I like that answer. I like it a lot. I mentioned in my portion of the book that there was a point in time during the year that we just went through where I realized that things started to get really hard and really rocky. And then I tuned in and I realized that I had completely stopped doing my morning practice. My morning practice that had become a part of my life, maybe because of getting caught up with the circumstances that were going on around me. I stopped doing doing my practices in the morning. I stopped doing my meditation. I stopped doing my mindful movement. I stopped doing my journaling practice. All of those things just went by the wayside for a while. And I noticed in my day, every day, it didn't go as smoothly. It sort of seems like being sure to stay true to my practice smoothed out the rough edges for me. What has your experience been with things like that?
Yeah. I definitely went through something similar where whenever fear showed up, um, that's when I started avoiding my morning practice or my regular practices. And I talk a little bit about that in the book. Um, and noticing that, about just learning that this is how what happens, this is what shows up when I'm starting to become afraid, when I'm tapping on the door of something deeper and more vulnerable. And the more I know that about myself, the more I can kind of work with it and love myself through it, if you will. um, yeah, it's oh gosh, I just lost my thought. But yeah, it's definitely a dance, um, and that connection is just so vital. And I know what I was going to say. Sorry, becoming aware of your vibration, the frequency of your energy, because especially as you mentioned too, just with outer circumstances, there can be a lot of lower vibration, fear and heaviness, and grief, and all kinds of emotions that can really weigh heavy on us. And but it's when we have a higher vibration, when we're operating from that space, or at least more from that space than not, that things do tend to flow better and feel better and are more supportive for us, instead of that sort of jagged, rocky experience that we're fighting, feel like maybe we're pushing or fighting against things. So that was the other point I wanted to make, was to become more aware, learn to tune into your vibration and feel for that. Where are you, and how to, and use those practices to adjust and bring yourself back to that.
I think that's really, really great advice. I absolutely would have to concur with everything that you've said. You know, people who are listening and watching and tuning in, they're really, I think, going to be a little curious about where you are now as far as your evolution goes.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's ironic, right? That the universe always has a sense of humor, I think. um, as soon as I felt like, I think I see the way, I think I've got it, and started to plan around that, I got thrust into another stage of evolution, and I'm smack in the middle of it right now. Yeah, so but I have to say, as I sort of scan back through the different cycles that I've already been through, um, there's more excitement each time. And this time, even though it feels, I sort of think it's like being on a sort of a boat that's rocking, maybe some big waves are coming, and you can feel like, whoa, that feels a little bit unsteady. But I feel like I'm dwelling more now in the realm of curiosity and excitement. Like, I wonder what's coming, even though there's discomfort. And so I thought, well, this is, what I'm embracing is constant evolution, ongoing evolution. So I'm being called to bring even more of my spiritual work into the work that I do. Um, there are parts of that feel highly vulnerable and scary to me, on a, it's a whole nother level. Um, but I'm committed to the dance. So I'm excited to see what's next. And it'll be some amalgamation of spiritual work, shamanic work, and business and brand. And you'll have to hang out with me a little bit and follow the journey to see what comes out of it.
I love all of that. And I see it all fitting together so very perfectly and so very nicely, because we continue to try to live a more aligned life. And if we're going to live a more aligned life, we have to bring that alignment into our businesses as well. We have to bring that alignment into our branding as well. So there is a place for my business shaman to show up. I think that's perfectly normal. What do you think?
I do too. Thank you. Yeah, and
I
who are
think
we to try to put our spiritual calling in a box, right? Like we have to let it express and however it's meant to and through us. So
awesome. I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us over in our Facebook group. We're getting lots of likes and comments over there. And I just want to acknowledge you, ladies, and say thank you for joining us. So, Veronica, before we go, any last words of wisdom for all of us who are going through our evolution at this time?
mm. Well, as I said, definitely trust yourself, trust your own process. And and I think the biggest message right now is, you know, um, we all have incredible gifts to bring forward.
Yes.
Um, and I know that's been said before, but it's now more than ever, we are in a time where the energy is ripe for this. Things are being uprooted. There's a chaotic, when I look at the energy, there's, it's almost like somebody took confetti and threw it up in the air. But that gives us like so much freedom as how we can put those pieces back together. And what I'm getting now is trust that, like, get creative. How do you want to see those pieces flow together in your own life? And don't hesitate to explore what that might look like and trust that process in yourself. Trust your inclinations.
I love that. And Tiffany over here on our Facebook group says, I think we're finally in a place where we don't have to splinter who we are and how we show up in the world so much.
Yes, beautifully said.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much, guys over on Facebook for, contributing to the conversation. It really means a lot that you've all joined us today. Uh, People are going to want to know how to connect with you, Veronica. How can people find you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is evolvative.com, EVOLATI. Is that right? ATIVE and .com. And you can sign up there to get on my mailing list. And I will continually be updating my site with, offerings as they start to percolate up.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if they want to join my mailing list, then I will definitely keep them in the loop right away.
Yes. So we can all stay in touch with our business shaman. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Thank you.
Veronica, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. It's always such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to say thank you to everybody who joined us over on our Facebook group. Thanks to everybody who's watching. Thanks to everybody who's listening. And we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, Davia.